Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show where we really try to cut through all that digital noise and get straight to the insights you actually need. If your LinkedIn feed looks anything like ours, you're probably wading through this constant flood of thought leadership. It's especially from the sales world. Seems like every time you scroll, there's a new guru, right? Or a new secret sauce or some kind of game-changing strategy. It's a lot.
It really is an overwhelming amount of information, you could say. Sometimes it feels like you need a deep dive just to figure out which deep dive is even worth paying attention to. It's just so easy to get lost in that stream of advice. And a lot of it feels, well, contradictory or maybe just not that new.
Exactly. And that's precisely why we're diving in today. This whole exploration is a direct response to this pile of sources we pulled together. It's centered around a recent report, Sales Influencer Insights on LinkedIn, from July 2025. And this thing, it distills what's being presented as wisdom from over 20 pretty prominent sales voices.
Yeah.
The ones who are all over the platform shaping the conversation.
Yeah, the big names you see constantly. So our mission today really is to unpack all these insights. We want to give you a clear, concise, and maybe even, let's be honest, a refreshingly blunt look at what's actually valuable here. What's a critical reminder for anyone in sales today? And frankly, what might just be common sense wrapped up with a fancy new hashtag. We're trying to help you, our listener, navigate all that noise and hopefully pinpoint the bits that are truly actionable for, modern sales pros. This isn't just about repeating what they said. It's about figuring out what it really means for your day-to-day.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. We're going to explore quite a range. Practical strategies for connecting with buyers, how to focus on the right activities that comes up a lot, plus things like maintaining authenticity, adapting to all this tech changing so fast, and even prioritizing personal well-being. These themes pop up again and again from these influencers. But look, this isn't about us endorsing every single viewpoint because, let's face it, not every bit of advice works for everyone. And sometimes it's not quite as profound as it sounds online. Instead, our aim is to pull out the core ideas, maybe challenge them a bit where needed, and show you the practical implications for your work. Okay, let's get into it. Back to basics, the foundation of effective sales. Okay, so let's kick things off where, interestingly, a lot of these influencers seem to bring us back to. And maybe where we all should start, really. The fundamentals. It's pretty striking, isn't it? How often the real basics seem to get kind of lost in the shuffle. Everyone's chasing the next shiny object, the next hack, the next tool. Beyond activity, the right focus and fundamentals.
So first up, let's look at a perspective from Andrew Congleton over at Titan X. His core insight, it delivers a pretty unvarnished truth, I think, but a necessary one for sales. He says a lot of talented AEs and SDRs, account executives, sales development reps, they struggle. But it's not because they aren't working hard. It's because they're wasting time on the wrong activities. He makes this really strong case that success isn't about just doing more stuff, more calls, more emails. It's fundamentally about doing the right things.
Yeah, that's a huge challenge to that old school dial for dollars idea, right? Where it was all about volume, volume, volume. Sometimes that just masked a total lack of strategy. Congleton's point implies there's a breakdown somewhere earlier, like in the targeting or the qualification. If your reps are, as he puts it pretty bluntly, dialing blindly, well, they're just guessing, aren't they? Hoping something sticks. It makes you wonder how much collective time and, frankly, energy is just getting burned on activities that were never going to work in the first place.
And he doesn't just leave it there as a theory. He gives a really practical example from Titan X itself. Their tool, he says, actively helps reps focus on prospects who actually pick up the phone. Now, just think about what that means practically. It's not about hitting some arbitrary number like 100 calls a day. It's about making, say, 20 calls to people who are way more likely to answer and actually talk to you. That signals a real strategic shift, doesn't moving away from just quantity towards intelligent, focused engagement, working smarter.
Definitely. And this whole idea forces you to confront what might be missing, fundamentally, if reps are just dialing blindly, like he says. It could point to, poor pre-call planning, maybe a fuzzy ideal customer profile, or even just not understanding the market segment properly. If a salesperson can't even figure out who's likely to be responsive or relevant, then honestly, no amount of sheer effort is going to fix their pipeline. And the hidden cost there isn't just wasted time, right? It's also the constant demotivation, the high churn rates you see with reps who are otherwise good.
Yeah, that leads perfectly into Troy Munson's warning, which is just as direct, maybe even more so. He says, automating stupidity only makes you fail faster. I mean, that's not just a wake-up call. It's like a direct hit aimed at teams who are rushing to grab the latest tech without having a solid strategy underneath it all. Munson points out that way too many teams are pouring money into auto dialers, fancy bots, you name it, but they're totally ignoring the basic timeless principles of selling.
Exactly, and connects straight back to Congleton's point. It really highlights this massive blind spot in a lot of modern sales operations. Technology, especially automation and AI, it's an amplifier. It doesn't magically fix flaws, it just makes whatever process you feed it bigger. So if your underlying sales process is broken or you're targeting the wrong audience with messages that don't land, then throwing an auto dialer at it or a bot, it just means you fail quicker, right? You burn through potential leads and, frankly, goodwill much faster. It's like putting rocket fuel in a car with no wheels. The outcome's going to be bad, just faster. Munson's advice is pretty clear. First, understand why customers buy. Really get it. Then, articulate your value super clearly and target the right people before you even think about automating anything. What really stands out to me here is this constant theme. New tools won't patch up those foundational gaps. You got to fix the foundation first.
I mean, that's such a critical reminder, especially now with AI adoption going crazy. We're constantly hearing about how AI is going to revolutionize sales, almost like it's a magic wand. But Munson's basically hitting the brakes and saying, hang on. If you don't know what you're doing manually, if your core strategy is off, AI won't fix it. In fact, he's implying it'll just make your mistakes more efficient. That's a really stark, honest take, isn't it? It underlines that tech has to serve the strategy. It can't be the strategy. It's about using the tool smartly, not just having the tool. B, protecting people. Sustainable sales cultures and personal resilience. Okay, so we've talked about the how of selling, the fundamentals. Now let's shift gears a bit to the who, the people doing the selling, focusing on that crucial human element. Lukas Arellano brings up this really sobering statistic. He says a staggering 90%, 90 of BDRs, business development reps, burn out within just 6 months. And he's explicit. It's not because they lack skill or aren't capable. It's because they often end up joining the wrong companies. Firms that operate on what he calls these churn and burn models.
Basically, environments where high turnover is just baked into the system and new hires are kind of seen as disposable fuel.
Oof. Yeah, that really shines a light on a deep systemic issue in the sales industry, doesn't it? That relentless pressure cooker environment. It's a pretty unflinching look at company culture, moving the focus away from just individual performance and onto the conditions people are working under. It suggests that a lot of companies, maybe without even realizing it, in their drive for hitting quotas, see their BDRs less as talent to be nurtured and developed and more like a revolving door. Just squeeze them dry and replace them. That model isn't just unsustainable, it's incredibly damaging to people's careers and the long-term health of the organization itself.
And what's really valuable, I think, is that Arellano doesn't just point out the problem. He gives actual practical advice for job seekers so they can try and avoid these traps. He suggests asking current reps, hey, how long have you actually been here? Checking if there's a clear path for promotion to AE, like are there real examples? And really digging into what the actual path to AE looks like, realistically. These aren't just nice-to-ask questions. They're concrete steps people can take to vet a company's culture before they sign on. That's quite a shift in responsibility, though, isn't it? Putting the onus on the individual to protect themselves.
It is, and it flips the question back onto sales leaders. How can organizations move away from these often default churn and burn ways? How do you build environments that actually retain and develop talent? It's fascinating is, like you said, the advice isn't just for the leaders. It empowers the individuals to have some agency, to spot the red flags. It underlines a kind of brutal truth. Your personal well-being often gets overlooked in that relentless, sometimes very short-sighted, chase for the quarterly numbers. It's almost a call for self-preservation in a tough industry.
And speaking of well-being and working smart, Edoardo Cannarsa highlights something that might seem counterintuitive at first, but is super important: learning to say no. He actually praises a colleague who stopped just automatically saying yes to everything and instead started prioritizing clarity, simplicity, and actual impact in their work. Cannarsa really encourages people to look for and join teams where, as he puts it, focus beats frenzy.
Right. That might sound odd in sales, where yes is usually the goal, right? Getting the customer to say yes. But this is about something deeper. It's about strategic prioritization. It's about managing your time effectively, knowing the difference between what feels urgent and what's actually important. For the individual rep, it means setting healthy boundaries, valuing your own time and expertise. And for the team, for leadership, it means creating a culture where people feel empowered, maybe even encouraged, to focus on the high-value stuff instead of getting pulled in a million different low-impact directions. Quality over just perceived quantity of effort.
Which leads us nicely to Kyle Coleman. He's got some great, really actionable points on decision-making and, maybe even more importantly, follow-through. First, on making decisions. He observes that a lot of careers just stall out, not because people aren't smart, but because they're paralyzed by the fear of making a decision. He stresses that decisions don't always have to be perfect. Perfectionism can be the enemy. But owning the decision, learning from it, being ready to pivot if needed, that's key. He really pushes people to actively look for companies that value learning and trying things, iterating.
Yeah, those points together really emphasize personal accountability, integrity. These are the absolute foundations for growing your career and building lasting relationships. Whether internal or external, that fear of making the wrong choice can be crippling, lead to total inaction. But Coleman nails it. Doing nothing is often way worse than making a well-intentioned mistake you can learn from. And this connects right back to well-being, doesn't it? A culture that supports learning from mistakes, that encourages trying things, it dramatically reduces that pressure and fear that contributes so much to burnout. It's like saying, it's okay to try and fail productively.
And then he makes this other point about follow-through is so simple but so powerful. He states point blank, the easiest, fastest way to completely torpedo trust with your team, with your clients, is to say you'll do something and then just not do it. Fulfilling your commitments, he says, is just paramount, non-negotiable in business relationships.
Absolutely. And it might sound obvious, right? Keep your promises. But the fact that a major influencer feels the need to state it so clearly tells you how often it must get dropped in the daily chaos of sales. It's the absolute bedrock. Professional integrity, reliability, it's everything. And if you tie this back, both of Corman's points, making decisions and following through, they directly link to that sustainability theme we were talking about. Individual resilience, having integrity. These aren't just nice to haves. They're crucial for avoiding burnout and building a career that lasts. They're the quiet keys to long-term success, often overlooked. 2, the art of the outreach. Authenticity, relevance, and navigating obstacles about.
Okay, let's pivot now. Right to the absolute front lines of sales. Outreach. I mean, in today's world, it's so crowded, so noisy online. How do you actually connect with people meaningfully? This is where a lot of these influencer insights really try to make their mark. Often with, let's say, mixed results. We need to cut through some of that, crafting messages that connect. Right, John Barrows. He's a really respected name, lots of followers. He has some incredibly insightful, honestly pretty blunt takes on being authentic and relevant in your outreach. He shared this powerful story, almost like a confession. He admitted he used to meticulously craft these AI-generated emails. And they were, perfect, polished, grammatically flawless, looked great, but they were missing something crucial, something intangible, authenticity. So he deliberately switched, started using direct, genuine, almost vulnerable subject lines like, "Did I lose you?" And guess what? He saw way better response rates.
Yeah, that's a massive counter-narrative, isn't it? To this whole trend of AI will write everything for you that's everywhere in sales talk right now. It points to a huge potential pitfall of leaning too heavily on AI for that direct human-to-human stuff without a serious human gut check, a check for real connection. The blunt truth he's hitting on is that sometimes less polish works better because it feels real. People connect with genuine curiosity, maybe even a bit of vulnerability, more than perfect but soulless text. It really forces the question, what are we actually optimizing for? Just efficiency or genuine engagement?
He also clears up this really common confusion that trips up so many salespeople.
Yeah.
The huge difference between just personalization and actual relevance. He warns that simply sprinkling in superficial personal details, mentioning their hobby, their college team, whatever, it's nowhere near enough to cut through. Messages, he insists, have to be deeply relevant to the buyer's actual business problems and goals. He pushes this framework that combines authentic personalization with real, actionable buyer context.
That distinction is just critical. So many tools now make it easy to personalize emails by scraping LinkedIn for random facts. But, like Barrows says pretty brutally, mentioning someone likes dogs isn't going to make them buy your complex enterprise software. It just won't. The core of the message has to address their business challenges, their pain points. It has to offer something relevant to their company's goals. Without that deep relevance, personalization just becomes, well, noise. Maybe personalized noise, but still noise.
And Barrows takes this critique even further. He warns sharply about what he calls AI personalization pitfalls. He sees these tools scraping tons of data, drafting emails, and they can end up sending messages that are, yeah, technically personal, but totally irrelevant, critically irrelevant. His warning is stark. Personalization without understanding the why, the buyer's core needs, their motivations, their problems, it's actually dangerous. Reps, he stresses, absolutely need real business acumen to connect those scraped data points to something genuinely relevant and impactful.
What's really fascinating there is how AI, if you use it without critical human insight, without really understanding the buyer's world, it can actually amplify bad sales strategy.
Right.
It can help you churn out more irrelevant emails faster, creating an even bigger flood of noise instead of delivering value. This directly challenges that whole automated personalization trend that so many companies are just jumping on without thinking. It implies a much deeper need for human insight, critical thinking, strategic understanding, even when you have the best tools. AI is powerful, yes, but it is absolutely not a substitute for real thought or human empathy.
And Kyle Coleman reinforces this perfectly. It's almost like they're tag teaming. He asks this direct, challenging question. Want me to respond to your email? Then show me you know something I don't know about my business. His core idea. Effective sales emails should actually teach the prospect something new, provide a real insight, not just ask for favors, push for a demo, or beg for 15 minutes.
Yeah, that directly backs up Barrows' point about relevance and value being king. Absolutely. It's about flipping the script, isn't it? Moving from salesperson asking for something to salesperson providing value right up front. Positioning yourself not just as someone selling something, but as a thought partner, someone who might offer a fresh angle or spot a blind spot they hadn't considered. Taken together, these points are arguing for a much more human, value-first approach to outreach, something that actually cuts through. Sure, AI can help with research, drafting, finding data, but that core human bit, understanding, empathy, delivering real relevance, that's still paramount. Absolutely essential. B, handling rejection and persistence.
But outreach isn't just about writing great messages, is it? It's also about how you handle the no, or maybe the subtle brush off. That's just part of the game. Chris Rontanini gives this fantastic, really concrete example of how to handle this. That classic cold call brush off, sorry, I have a meeting. Instead of just rolling over and saying, okay, bye, she calmly, almost subtly, asked a quick, smart question. And that little bit of persistence led to this impromptu 4-minute chat. She learned key details about the prospect's role, their quoting process, stuff she needed, which then let her send a super tailored, really relevant digital sales room follow-up.
That's a brilliant example. It's intelligent persistence, right? Without being pushy or annoying. It's not about arguing or forcing the conversation. It's about staying curious, actively listening, even when you get that initial resistance. Her advice is simple but profound. Stay calm, persist with curiosity, and prospects will often open up. It really shows how even a brief moment of genuine empathetic engagement can turn what looks like a dead end into a real opportunity.
But then, you've got the other side of that coin. Carla Machioku provides some crucial, maybe uncomfortable clarity for reps. She actually listed out 7 common polite phrases prospects use when they really mean no. Things like, oh, I'll check internally, or love the demo, but we need to check the budget, or that classic, let's reconnect when things are calmer. Her point very directly is, these often just mean no. And reps need to recognize them for what they are, so they can plan follow-ups realistically, or maybe more importantly, just move on and not waste their time.
Yeah, that's about learning to read between the lines, isn't it? And avoiding that trap of false hope, which can be so draining. It helps reps manage their pipeline way more effectively and, crucially, stop pouring time and emotional energy into leads that are already dead, just disguised with politeness. Recognizing those soft no's is a vital skill. It helps manage expectations, keeps morale up, and lets you focus your energy where it counts. It forces reps to face that sometimes brutal truth. A polite deflection is still a rejection.
So you have Rontanini and Machioku tackling different parts of this delicate dance with objections and rejection. Rontanini shows how to skillfully navigate a soft brush-off with curiosity, maybe turn it around. Machioku, on the other hand, helps you spot a definite no hidden in politeness so you don't chase ghosts. It does raise a pretty important question for sales managers, doesn't it? Are reps actually trained to pick up on these subtleties? Or are they just coached to push relentlessly for a yes, no matter the signals?
It often comes down to training, experience, and honestly, the sales culture. Many reps are quite rightly taught to handle objections, but there's a really fine line between persistence, which is good, and just being tone deaf to clear signals, which is bad. Understanding these nuances saves the seller's time, saves the buyer's patience, and ultimately just makes the whole sales experience better for everyone. The brutal truth is not every prospect is a fit. Recognizing that early, that's a superpower in sales. 3. The role of technology. Strategic AI and streamlined processes.
All right, let's wade into the tech frontier. Now, specifically, AI, artificial intelligence. It feels like it's the topic for every influencer out there, doesn't it? Everyone's got a take. We need to try and cut through some of the hype surrounding it. AI in practice beyond the hype. So Michael Taggart, speaking at that big ServiceNow forum recently, he made this really key observation. He noted that AI isn't just theory anymore. It's not something off in the future. Organizations right now are implementing what's called agentic AI. Think of it like AI that doesn't just answer questions, but can actually do things autonomously, complete tasks. And they're using it specifically to automate manual processes, save significant money. This isn't just talk. AI is moving fast from concept to actual practical use, delivering real efficiencies.
Yeah, that really pushes back against that lingering idea that AI is still mostly futuristic hype. It's here now. And it's being used for tangible gains,
Right.
especially taking over those routine, manual, often tedious tasks. This rise of agentic AI is a big shift. It's beyond just chatbots analyzing data. It's about autonomous agents doing multi-step jobs, moving from just support to actual workflow automation, even making decisions. It's fundamentally changing how work gets done.
And then John Barrows, always the pragmatist, right? He offers this really unexpected kind of fascinating use for AI. It shows how versatile it can be. He uses ChatGPT as what he calls his anger translator, which I love. So when he's feeling really frustrated or emotional about something work-related, he'll just vent all his raw feelings to the AI. And then he has it draft a professional, calm, strategically sound reply based on his vent. This clever little hack helps him avoid firing off those heat-of-the-moment emails that he might regret later.
That is brilliant and actually profoundly human, isn't it? Using AI that way. It highlights its potential not just for optimizing processes, but for helping with emotional regulation and professional communication. It's a huge problem most people face, right? Handling difficult stuff calmly. It's a very human challenge, reacting impulsively solved pretty elegantly with tech. It shows AI's utility goes way beyond just tasks. It's almost like having a digital coach for emotional intelligence on demand. Pretty cool.
So these examples really show AI's practical side, its diverse uses. From automating the boring stuff and streamlining complex processes, right through to refining personal, sensitive communication. It definitely moves AI out of the realm of abstract hype and into being a daily tool, impacting how salespeople manage their work and their interactions. The strategic tool use in combating AI sprawl. But it's crucial to remember it's not just about AI flying solo. It's about how tech fits into the whole sales process smartly, and sometimes how it can actually make things more complicated. Kendra Shaber emphasizes something that often gets overlooked but is absolutely critical. Professional quoting matters a lot. She argues really forcefully it's not just about spitting out a number. It's tied directly to your professionalism, how fast you operate, and ultimately building trust with the buyer. Her team, for example, adopted this software called Quoter. It lets them build complex quotes in minutes, integrates with distributors, automates approvals, basically making quoting a solid backbone of their whole process.
Yeah, that insight really puts the spotlight on a stage of the sales cycle that's often underestimated but is so crucial, the quoting phase. For way too many companies, this is a huge bottleneck. It's full of manual errors, delays, just a general lack of polish that can undermine the entire sales effort up to that point. Shaber's example brutally shows how tech, even specialized software for a seemingly boring task, can turn that liability into a real competitive edge. By bringing professionalism, speed, accuracy right at that critical moment, it's about spotting those friction points in your process and fixing them systematically.
And speaking of visibility and friction, Scratchpad, the company, shared this funny but painfully accurate meme recently about those horrible end-of-quarter surprises in the sales forecast. Their argument. These last-minute shocks almost always come from just poor visibility into the pipeline. So their tools, AI CRM updates, Scratchpad notes, Ask AI, they all work together to automate data entry, capture critical context from calls and emails, provide quick summaries, all designed to stop sales leaders getting blindsided by deals falling through unexpectedly.
That hits right at a chronic pain point in sales management, doesn't it? That constant struggle for accurate forecasting, real pipeline visibility. It showcases how smartly integrated AI and unified tools can seriously improve both how much you can see and how well you can predict what's coming. This prevents leaders from getting caught flat-footed, allows for much more proactive data-based decisions. Because the hidden cost of bad forecasting isn't just missing the number, it's wasted resources, that end-of-quarter panic, and just a fundamental lack of strategic control.
Coleman, again, he offers some really sharp observations here that touch on a deeper issue, I think. First, a simple but super effective productivity tip. Dictation. He mentions tasks that used to take him ages to think through and type out. He can now just blast through by dictating into a mic. Saves a ton of time, speeds things up massively. It's a small tech hack, sure, but for individual productivity, it can be a game changer.
Totally agree. It's a great example of using readily available tech to boost your own efficiency. And those individual gains add up across a team, right? It shows how even simple tech adoptions, when you apply them thoughtfully, can make a big difference to your daily workflow. It also shows the influencer space isn't always about some grand abstract theory. Sometimes it's just finding those small, practical shifts that work.
Well, then Coleman hits us with something really fascinating, and I think a pretty brutal take on modern productivity issues. He warns very starkly about what he calls AI sprawl, this insidious problem of using too many disconnected, separate tools across the company, which he argues is actively killing productivity. He then talks of BrainMax, describing it as this super app designed to pull together chat, documents, notes, everything into one unified space to eliminate those silos and cut down on all that busy work.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. And it's such a critical counterpoint to that constant push for just more tools, more tools.
Yeah.
It tackles this paradox head on. Companies trying to be efficient end up adopting so many different point solutions that they accidentally create more problems, more integrations to manage, more places information gets stuck, more switching between apps, just more chaos. The brutal take here is that countless companies are probably suffering badly from this AI sprawl, ironically, while desperately trying to be more efficient. A truly unified workspace, like Coleman argues for, is becoming absolutely essential to cut through that self-inflicted mess.
And he backs this up with a really compelling numbers-based example of the impact. Using ClickUp's AI dashboard, Coleman claims he saves a massive 5 hours every week. Instead of sitting through multiple stand-up meetings, long one-on-ones, he just spends maybe 10 minutes each morning reviewing progress, spotting blockers, seeing who's doing well, all from the dashboard. Centralizing chat, docs, tasks in one AI-driven place literally eliminates a huge chunk of unnecessary meetings.
That's a powerful example of how integrated, smart AI can fundamentally change work habits, change meeting culture, and lead to real, measurable time savings, big efficiency gains. It's not just about doing single tasks faster, it's about optimizing the whole way a team communicates, collaborates, operates. So this whole section really drives home that tech, especially AI, has enormous potential, but only if you implement it strategically. The consistent message coming through from different voices is that integration, a unified approach, thoughtful application, these are non-negotiable. Avoid fragmenting everything. Focus relentlessly on genuine efficiency gains, not just piling more tools onto an already cluttered tech stack. Mindset, evolution, and how you sell.
All right, let's move into some broader themes now. The mindset of the salesperson and how the whole sales landscape itself is evolving. This is where some of the more introspective, maybe even uncomfortable truths tend to surface. A, beyond the product to sales mindset. John Barrows, again, he offers another insight that really resonates, gets to the core of business success. He claims most companies don't fail because their product isn't good enough. They fail because of poor selling. He argues pretty forcefully that once your product does the basics, meets the core need, the real difference maker, the competitive edge, it lies squarely in how you sell.
Wow. That really shifts the spotlight, doesn't it? Away from just focusing on the product and right onto the sales process itself. And crucially, the skills of the person doing the selling. It's a powerful, almost brutal statement about the true value of sales professionals, something that often gets undervalued, I think. It implies that even an amazing, innovative product can totally tank if it's not sold effectively strategically. It basically says the sales function isn't just a cost center. It's a critical strategic differentiator. It forces us to admit the best product doesn't always win. Often the best selling wins.
And Barrows also gives us this really crucial psychological insight, especially relevant for salespeople, right? Because they face rejection, scrutiny, judgment constantly. It's part of the job.
Yeah.
He talks about learning, personally, that just assuming everyone's judging you all the time is incredibly unproductive, self-defeating, really. He urges people instead to assume others are kind or well-intentioned until they prove otherwise, and to focus intensely on what you can control, your effort, your attitude, and your treatment of others. He calls it the ET framework. Simple but powerful.
That focus on an internal locus of control, on building resilience, it's so important, almost foundational for surviving and thriving in sales long term. In a job with constant pressure, frequent setbacks, high stakes, managing your own mindset is often just as critical, maybe even more so than knowing any specific sales technique. It helps stop that negative self-talk, that fear, from becoming huge roadblocks. It's really a call for deep self-awareness and mental toughness.
And just to show he's relatable, maybe offer a little wink to his audience, Barrows even shared something that felt like a subtle critique of LinkedIn itself, the platform that made him famous. He posted this old childhood photo of himself and playfully suggested that LinkedIn's algorithm, because it chases engagement so hard, might accidentally end up prioritizing stuff that goes viral, stuff that's emotionally resonant, over content that's actually high quality or deeply insightful.
Right. While that's not direct sales advice, it definitely shows an influencer who's very aware of how the platform works. And it's a subtle but pretty potent critique of what drives engagement there. It's kind of a quiet, maybe brutal reminder that even the insights we're all consuming and talking about are filtered through algorithms. Algorithms designed to push what gets clicks, what gets reactions, which isn't always the same as what's truly valuable or wise. It's a necessary little dose of skepticism about the potential superficiality that can easily creep into these professional networks. B, evolving sales models.
Okay, let's talk about how sales itself is changing, evolving. John Barrows, again, he throws down a pretty significant challenge to sales leaders who might be stuck in the past. He argues quite forcefully that the traditional SDR model sales development rep in its current shape is basically outdated. Instead of just trying to tweak and optimize this old model that might be fundamentally broken, he suggests teams need to be brave, evolve towards more flexible roles, maybe generalists, maybe specialists, but roles that actually align with how buyers behave today with their more complex journeys.
Yeah, that's calling for a fundamental rethink, isn't it? Rethinking traditional sales roles to actually match how customers buy now. That standard SDR model, often narrowly focused on just outbound prospecting, often with those crazy high turn rates we talked about, it might just not be effective anymore for the complexity of modern B2B buying. It strongly suggests we need more agile, more adaptive, more buyer-focused structures to keep up with how the market is changing. It's a tough truth, maybe, but the way we've always done it might just not be the best way anymore.
And Junaid Khan brings us back to a really basic, maybe uncomfortable sales action. He states pretty bluntly that something like 95% of reps who mostly handle inbound leads something. Waiting for customers to come to them, they actively avoid doing outbound outreach, even when they're missing quota. His suggestion is incredibly simple, but maybe often ignored. Embrace proactive outbound. Go find business. That's how you drive success consistently and fill your pipeline.
That really points to a major comfort zone issue, doesn't it? And maybe, frankly, a lack of initiative on some teams. Relying only on inbound might feel safer, easier, sure, but it definitely limits your growth potential, leaves a ton of opportunity just sitting there. Khan highlights with total clarity that you usually need a proactive, multi-pronged approach. Combining inbound and outbound smartly, that's often what it takes to hit those big targets rather than just sitting back and hoping leads fall into your lap. It's about taking active control of your own results.
So yeah, these insights for Barrows and Khan, they really push us to think critically about some long-standing sales habits, traditional models, and more broadly about just being effective personally in this environment that's changing so fast. They're pushing for serious adaptation, for cultivating a mindset that's robust, resilient, ready for what's next in the sales world. So after unpacking all of this, what does it actually boil down to? What does it mean for you, our listener, trying to navigate this today? Key takeaways for today's sales professionals.
Okay, so boiling it all down, it really feels like a blend, doesn't it? A mix of those timeless core principles and the absolute need for smart adaptation in this fast-paced modern world. First, and maybe the biggest one, be authentic and relevant. That comes through loud and clear. AI can write polished emails, sure, but they often lack that human spark buyers actually respond to. Buyers connect with real authenticity, real relevance. That means you have to do the work. Research their business deeply, provide actual insights, real value, not just generic fluff or asks that waste their time.
Exactly. And number two, prioritize the right activities. Don't get sucked into that trap of just being busy for busy's sake. Focus like a laser on prospects who are actually responsive, on actions that genuinely move deals forward. Real efficiency isn't about doing more things, it's about doing the right things effectively and fiercely guarding your time against unqualified leads or just unproductive busy work. It's about intelligent velocity, not just volume.
Number 3, and this is crucial, protect your well-being in your career. Actively look out for and avoid those soul-crushing churn and burn cultures. They'll just drain you. And embrace proactive outbound. Waiting by the phone isn't always going to cut it if you have ambitious goals. Deliberately seek out companies that truly support learning, trying things, iterating, holding people accountable in a healthy way. Find environments where you can actually thrive and build something sustainable, not just barely survive quarter to quarter.
Yeah, and tightly connected to that is number 4. Own your decisions and follow through. Your career growth, your long-term success, it's directly tied to having the courage to make decisions, learning from them good or bad, and taking full accountability. And trust. Trust is the absolute bedrock of any sales relationship. It's built slowly, meticulously, by consistently doing what you say you're going to do, delivering on your commitments. It's not flashy, but it's fundamental.
Okay, number 5, leveraging technology. Leverage AI strategically. Yes, AI can save you huge amounts of time, but only when it's smartly integrated into a unified workflow. But be brutally wary of that AI sprawl. Too many disconnected tools causing chaos and actually killing productivity. That's a real danger. Use AI thoughtfully to augment what you do, to summarize info quickly, keep forecasts accurate, but always make sure it's serving your goals, not the other way around. Don't let the tools run you.
And finally, number 6. This one's nuanced, but so important. Nurture relationships and know when to say no. Sales, at its core, is about empathy. It's about understanding when to prioritize the quality of an interaction over just the sheer quantity of touches. That means not just learning to read those polite rejections accurately, so you save your energy, but also knowing how to be persistent with curiosity without ever crossing the line into being pushy or annoying. It's a really delicate balancing act, isn't it? Engaging genuinely, but also having the wisdom to know when it's time to step back, move on, and focus your energy where it's more likely to yield results. Outro. So there you have it. We've really tried to take a proper deep dive into this collection of insights from some of LinkedIn's most visible sales influencers. We've covered a lot, from the basics focusing on the right stuff, protecting yourself, all the way to the nuances of authentic communication and using AI strategically. We've seen how some insights just reinforce timeless truths, about connection, integrity, while others offer pretty practical, maybe even brutally honest hacks for dealing with the sales world as it is right now, today.
Yeah, absolutely. We've navigated through the advice they give outright, the warnings that are maybe more subtle, and even some of those unspoken critiques embedded in their posts. What seems really clear, though, is that while the tools change, the platforms change, the buzzwords change, the core principles, they don't really. Deeply understanding your buyer, consistently delivering real value, meticulously building trust, those things remain absolutely critical. Unshakable, really.
In a world that's just drowning in insights from every direction online, where every scroll throws more advice at you, maybe the real differentiator isn't who can absorb the most information. Maybe it's who can most effectively filter it all, integrate the good stuff, and then crucially, actually act on the truly valuable nuggets. Separating the real wisdom from the well-intentioned noise, or maybe even just the slickly packaged platitudes. So what stands out to you listening right now? What was the most surprising or maybe the most impactful insight from everything we discussed today? And how might that one thing maybe change one thing you do tomorrow?